Okay, going way back here. Probably forget this stuff. Okay, the vertex of this parabola is the opposite, +1, comma the opposite, so -7. FYI, if this was written with the 7 on the outside like that, it would be opposite and same. Okay? Does that make sense? It depends on where I put that 7. So if the 7 is over there, it's just down 7, but if it's on the other side, it's opposite. Okay. The slope. What is the slope of this equation? So the slope is the multiplier, so 2. Therefore, which way does it open, up or down? It opens up. Okay, so let's graph this. We can already graph it. So 1, -7. Okay, now I'm going to do this over up pattern. What do we normally do on a parabola? What's that normal shape? Do you remember all the over, up, over, up, over, up? 1 squared is 1. 2, 4, 3, 9. But what do we do with this slope of 2? It affects this somehow. What does it do? Multiply by 2. So this will be 2, 8, 18. Okay, vertex. I'm going to go over 1, up 2. And I do that both sides. Okay, you always reset. So go back to that vertex. Now go over 2, up 8. Okay, on your exam, I think in my instructions it'll say you have to graph a minimum of 5 points. So I'm good. And then make sure it's not pointy, it rounds at the bottom. And you need to also make sure you have arrows at the top, or that's a communication error. Okay, axis of symmetry is the line that cuts right down the middle. So this is how I would cut it if I could cut it in the middle. What is the equation of that line? I think that I catch 60% of the people doing this wrong. I want an equation. How do you graph that line? X equals 1. So where do I get mistakes? Everybody writes 1. Remember, when you graph a vertical line, it's x equals. A horizontal would be y equals. Okay, domain. So you're answering how far left to right. So on a parabola, it will go out forever. Range, the lowest to the highest. What's the lowest we're going to get to? -7. What kind of bracket would you put on that? Exactly. To highest, infinity. Okay, describe the transformations. So when I looked at this, it moved right 1. It has moved down 7. And what did the 2 do to the shape of my parabola? Do you remember it? It made it go like this. What did we always say? Narrowed it. And that's it. Okay, the y-intercept, I'm going to do it algebraically, but also it should match your graph, right? So what does a y-intercept even mean to you? Anything. Ever you're doing a y-intercept, what's the general idea? Where x is 0. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 0 in to the x spot. Okay, math. 2 times, what is -1 squared? 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Now I need to minus 7. So the y-intercept is -5. Does it physically match? What's this y-intercept? Does it look like it's -5? Okay. On the exam, you have this exact same question. Okay, obviously different numbers in there. I often get somebody who tells me their y-intercept is -12, but then their graph looks like this. Okay? Think about where did something go wrong if this is not matching this. Something happened. Okay. Next. So that one was called a standard form equation, and this one is general. Okay, so vertex. We do something completely different to get the vertex. Anybody remember this little magical formula that we did a lot? Negative b over 2a. Does that ring a bell? It's on your formula sheet. It's on your formula sheet. You would have it on there for the exam. What do I replace negative b with? Do you remember which one's the a, the b, and the c? A, b, and c. So what's the opposite of -6? 6. 2 times, what do I replace a with? -1. -1 x squared. So that is -3. How do I get its y partner? Because that's just the x of it. How do I get a y if I know an x? Plug it in, yeah. Okay, this is where I think I caught lots of you. Understanding what to do with all this negative stuff. See how I have the negative out front? What's the negative of -3 squared? Okay, that's the math that I would have caught some of you on before on this test. Okay, ready? BEDMAS says we would square something before timesing it by -1. Does that make sense to you? So -3 squared is +9 times -1. 2 negatives multiplied will make a +18 minus 3, which is 6. So that's our vertex, -3, comma 6. What is the slope? So what is the multiplier on the x squared? -1. That means it opens down. Okay, so now I'm going to do this chart over up. 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. I'm just going to start, always start, and then analyze it. So I need to times by -1. Okay, so do that pattern from your vertex. 1 over, 1 down. Always reset to your vertex. Remember to reset. 2 over, 4 down. Okay, that would be enough for me. FYI, if you do one more set, it probably would show you where your y-intercept is. If you want to do one more set, 1, 2, 3, and then 9. Okay, axis of symmetry. If you were to make a line that would cut it in half, it would be right there. Okay? Please don't forget on the test, it's a costly half point. It's just adding x equals in front of it. X equals which value?
Green Gatorade bottle.
Right here. You found the owner. I was wondering where it came from.
Thank you.
What do we get? -3 is the x value there. Okay, domain, always going to be the same idea, right? So -infinity to infinity. Okay, range, you have to be careful with your format here. You have to write it the lowest to the highest. So what is the lowest first? So -infinity would go first. Up to the highest, 6. Okay, y-intercept, I can see it on the graph, but why is it like that? So what would happen if x was 0? Then those would all be gone. And what would your number be if x was 0? You would get a -3. Okay, does that match our graph? Yep. Okay, so that one is just look at the last number because all the other x stuff is gone. Okay, you for sure on your exam have one of each of those. So basically this page, it's worth like 20 points already on your exam. So if you can master that, that's good because it's 20 points. If we were given x-intercepts of 1 and 11, so if we had an intercept at 1 and 11, where would the axis of symmetry be? How do we know? What's the relationship on that? It would have to be right in the middle. What number is right in the middle of that? 6. It's 5 apart from each other. That's probably what you're thinking. Okay, do we see that 6 is in the middle? So x equals 6. Okay, and again, that axis of symmetry, you got to add x equals or it's a half point. Okay, write a possible equation. So if I'm trying to think about a parabola that does that, how do we create an x-intercept at 1? What's the stage before having, so like if you start with something and then we end up with x equals 1, what did we have before that? How have we been doing this all year? How do we always get x-intercepts? What's before it? A factor. What kind of factor would have there been to make an x-intercept of 1? X minus 1. Okay? if we had a result x equals 11, what was the factor that did that? X minus 11. Okay? Now this is still just factors, so I'm going to FOIL this out. So x squared. When you FOIL, you can use your backwards rules of factoring. What do those two numbers add to, and what do they multiply to? What do these add up to? Negative 12x. And what do they multiply to? Plus 11. Okay? And I'm missing something that's going to cost you another half point if you forget. If I'm trying to make an equation, what should I write? Y equals. All right, next we have a vertex at -1, 8, so somewhere along that line. And then there is a point, just a point at 1, 0. So I know I'm opening down. I know that because this is the vertex. And if I want to go to that point, I got to open down to get there. So here's my question for you. Tell me what you did to get there. If you were to walk there on a path, how much did you go over and down? So you were at -1, and now you're over at +1. How many steps is that? 2? From -1 to 0 to 1, that's 2. And how much did you move here? You were at 8, and now you're at 0. So you went over 2 and down 8. Okay, that's not the pattern. That's not what I should have done. I should have done that, 2, 4. I should go 2 over 4 up. So here's my question. What did I multiply by? That in a way that I went down 8. What's the slope? -2? Okay, so I'm going to fill this in to an equation, and we're going to flip back here. I need it to make it look like this. I'm going to put the vertex and the slope into it. Do you remember the vertex was opposite? So y, what? What's the opposite number? So this was 8, so I go -8. And then -2 x, and then opposite of the x. So if this was the vertex, +1. Okay, you remember that? So now I know my vertex and my slope. And you always leave the xy open because there's a lot of other xy's. Okay, you're trying to max the area of a rectangular pen for your animals, and this is what it looks like, and it's along a barn, so we're not going to put fence on that side. Okay, so I'm going to go L for the bottom. The whole bottom is a length, and then these are all widths. We have 1,000 feet of fence to do all that. So I can add that all up to 1,000. So L plus 3W would equal 1,000. Okay. Now let's talk about area for a second. what's the area of a rectangle? Do you remember that one? Length times width. Okay, so I'm trying to do some work with this area formula, but I can't do that with an L and a W. Okay, math is not going to work over there if you have two variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate something in here so that I can replace it over there. Which one of these do you want to get alone? Which one looks mathematically easier, the L alone or the W alone? The L looks a lot easier. Okay, you can't put those together. I've had some people that try to do 997W. Don't put them together, they're not like terms. Okay, it's 1,000 and a W term. You can't combine them. Okay, ready? I'm going to now replace L. So 1,000 minus 3W. Okay, because it's equivalent to L, I can replace it. Did you notice how I put it in brackets? Because that's really important because you want to times it all by W, which means I'm going to do one of those distributions because I'm timesing it all. Okay, now we got our equation. This is our quadratic. Okay, I'm trying to get max. I'm trying to get a max. So I need to analyze the vertex. If I'm going to get a max, that's the vertex. It's going to be on the top. Okay, how do I get a vertex? What's that little thing we always do? When it looks like this, how do you get the vertex? Negative b over 2a. Okay, so negative b. What are you going to replace that with? And it looks a little tricky right now. Why would it be tricky? Which one is b? The 1,000 is the b. Okay, it's not because of the order, right? The A, B are not an order thing. It's A is on the squared unit. B is on just the unit. So negative 1,000 over 2 times negative 3. So 1,000 divided by 6. Okay, this is normally the x of the vertex. It's not now because of the equation. Instead of x, it is the w. So this is the w. So what am I going to do with that? Okay, so normally we go back and plug it in. If I plug it in, it gets me my area. But I don't want the area. It says what are the dimensions. So now I would like to know what the length is. So 1,000 subtract 3 W's. Okay, and I'm not going to round because I have this on my calculator. I'm going to do this on my calculator, times it by 3. So 3 of those is 500. Okay, and some of you, if you had done a rounding thing, it would have thrown your answer off a little bit. Well, Okay, number 6. You sell concert tickets for $10 and 500 people come. We're going to get some revenue. So this is what let's start out with. The revenue you're going to make at your concert is your price of your ticket times the people that are coming. Does that make sense? $10, 500 people, you would make $5,000. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to leave myself some brackets and we'll put it all in. Okay, the ticket price, we started at $10. The people started at 500 people. If you increase the price by $1, increase by $1, then 10 fewer people will come. 10 fewer people will come. And what am I missing? The variable. This might increase 1, it might increase twice, 3 times, and then as soon as that increases a few times, this will decrease a few times. Okay, now what would you do once you've had this? What do you think your next step would be? To FOIL it all out. Okay, so we get 5,000 minus 100x plus 500x minus 10x squared. Okay, there's all the parts of my FOIL. Okay, I'm going to put these together, and at the same time, you know what, I'm probably just going to rearrange it A, B, C. So negative 10x squared would be the A. And then if I put those together, what is that? 400x and then 5,000. Okay, just like last time, we're trying to get a maximum. So what do we do to get a maximum? A maximum is on the top, so I need the vertex. How do I get a vertex with an equation that looks like this? What's my little technique? What's that little formula? Negative b over 2a. So negative 400 over 2 negative 10s. Okay, I get this error quite often. Okay, do you see what I did there? I typed in negative 400 divided by 2 times negative 10. See what I typed in? And it gave me 2,000. Okay, I'm supposed to get a 20, so what did I do wrong when I did that? Yeah. What your calculator is doing is dividing that and then timesing it. So I would have to add brackets if that's what I was doing. Okay? If you're doing it that way, I actually usually just tell myself what is the bottom number, and then I'm like, well, negative 400 divided by negative 20. Then I don't have to worry about brackets at all. Okay, let's talk about what we're finding here. What is the ticket price? So the ticket price. The ticket price. This is what I want to know. It started at $10 and I increased it by $1 20 times. So if I go up $1 20 times, I go up $20. So what's my ticket price? What does that make if I go up 20? My answer would be a $30 ticket.